and layer 3 access. Okay. Then we also touch a bit on the distributed virtual switch. Okay. So what is this actually for? So this is short form. Now remember, in Huawei, material documentation and even exam, they like to utilize abbreviation or short form. So you need to understand all this short form before you actually sit for the exam. Okay, so this is for the yesterday network virtualization topic. And the second one for yesterday, we talked about some storage virtualization technology. Okay. So we actually look into different types of storage we use. Okay, then we also discuss about virtualized and non-virtualized storage. Okay, so this is actually the data store perspective. Okay, then we also talk about, for example, the virtual machine disk and data store relationship. Okay, so we talked about a lot of storage thing yesterday. Okay, so these are some of the recap for yesterday topic. Okay. So for today, I will basically do demo. Okay, today, main focus will be lab demo. So first thing I will show you how to configure the DVS, maybe uplink. Okay. Okay, initially this is at least step 2. Okay. Step number 1, I will show you how to configure the CNA network port binding. Okay, or sometimes you can call it the port aggregation in some vendor also syllabus. Then the uplink for the DVS. Okay. So I will also show you how to configure the storage connection. Okay, how to connect to HCIA or IPsend LAN. Okay. I will just show you how to configure the IPsend LAN data store. Okay. Then later I will actually show you the virtual machine life cycle management, which cover like create, install, and also manage VM. Okay. So these are the things that we'll focus in today's lab demo. So I'll be utilizing the real equipment provided by Huawei, so remote connection itself. So good news is, Meryl already confirmed that you will get the training video later for you to further revision and study. So you can also utilize this training video for you to practice your lab. Okay. So in this particular session, I will demo to you, explain also what I am doing actually during the lab for you to have more understanding, okay, as compared to following the lab guide. Okay. Certain information and explanation is not available in the lab guide. So with this session, hope that you will have lesser confusion, especially when you're preparing for your lab exam. Okay. So let's move on to the lab session. Okay, so I've already logged into the Huawei eLab solution. Okay, so let me log into the VRM console again. One password. Okay, so if you type the wrong password for one time, you need to put in the verification. It's a bit hard to see this particular verification code. Okay, good. Let's just save the password for easier access later. Okay, now let me just capture the this also. Today. Okay, so let's start the lab itself. Okay, so before we actually touch on this one, just let me briefly explain to you what I am planning to do in my lab here. So I'll just whiteboard some of the things that you should actually know beforehand. Okay. So I have one CNA, one, then I have another CNA 2. Okay. Now this particular machine comes with a 4 interface, in network interface itself over here. So basically for your CNA 1, I will have 0 and 1. Another one will be also 0 and 1. So this is basically your network interface card. Network interface card. So these two ports later I will actually bind them into a management aggregation port. Okay, on both of them. Okay, aggregation management port. So this particular port will be used for your management port is actually tied to this. So this is basically a logical port. Comes with the IP 192.168.123.101. So similar over here, this will be the management port. Okay, so you have more idea what I am actually doing later. So the management port is already configured for information when you add into the VRM machine. Okay, so this is actually the IP address A102. So this particular port is actually shown in the, okay, let me just show you from the VRM. So I have 101 and 102 IP address. So if I go to the resource pools, okay, when I check on the management cluster on the left, then click on the host. Okay. So from the host, you will see that these are the CNA host management IP, 101 and also 102. So where do you actually check the interface configuration? Okay, so you will need to expand the management cluster on the left to select your CNA node individually, or you can click on the name directly as a shortcut. Okay. So when I go to CNA1, Under CNA1, when you click on the configuration, okay, so under the CNA1 configuration, in the network portion, you will see that we do have some logical interface. So this logical interface is pre-created, okay, pre-created, and you will see that this is basically the logical management port with this IP address that is actually running with VLAN 0 and connected via the management aggregation port. Okay, so if you click on CNA2, they will show you the same thing here. Management port 0, then this is the IP, and they are connected to this port aggregation or phone ports. Okay, so these are the management port itself. So later I will actually create an extra phone ports. Okay, so later I will add in port number 1 into the management aggregation port, okay, for both nodes to facilitate redundancy, active passive configuration. Okay, because the switch does not come with LACP, so I'm using active passive. And later I will also create another. Okay, so on the CNA node, they will have the other two port 3 and port 2. Okay, number 2 and number 3. So I will also create another port aggregation here. Okay, this is used for storage. Okay. Storage, for example. So on the storage part, I will be creating a storage port. Okay, similar here, storage port. So this is still a logical port or logical interface used by the CNA node. Okay, CNA node. So you will see that your DRM is running here in the CNA1 host, okay, and they are connecting to the particular management port. Okay. So here later I will actually configure another IP 192.168.18.101, then 192.168.18.102. So it will be connected to the IP-SAN storage. IP-SAN storage. Let me just check the IP address. IP-SAN storage will be port 1. Okay. So this is 192.168.123.1. So this will be connected actually to it. Okay. So this is basically the configuration. So let's see how they actually works here. So I will also show you how you were able to actually add in. Okay, so they will have already created a management VPS. So I will be connected using these two as the uplink. Okay, uplink to the VPS. Okay, so I will basically show you the storage connection and also the network uplink before I move into the virtual machine creation. So this is roughly how the CNA node topology actually works here, and what I will be actually doing and setting the IP. So you have a better idea according to this topology, what I'm actually doing at the same time. Okay. So let me just okay, so let's move on. Okay, so first I will check on my CNA1 under network click on the physical NIC. Now here they will detect how many physical network interfaces available, okay, in this particular CNA node. So you can check for both machines. It will be having the same network port 0, 1, 2, and 3. So you see that over here, according to the network port number, so I basically actually show you earlier what I am actually doing. So I will be adding in port 0 and 1 into the default created management aggregation port, and later 2 and 3 to the storage aggregation port that is used to connect to the storage system. Okay, so let's look into it. So when I click on the aggregate port here, you can basically see there's a default created active backup mode aggregation port. So below, when you move down, it will be only having the Ethernet 0 port. So when you do the CNA installation, we actually selected the Ethernet 0 port, and this one will be converted into a port aggregation, and the IP address that you have set earlier will be converted to a logical interface, okay, with the IP that you have set. So here, to add in an extra network port, you just need to click on Add Network Port. Okay. Then select Ethernet 1 and confirm. Done to add in an extra network port to the port aggregation. So with this port aggregation, we have 2 network ports, active, and backup. Okay. So this is mainly used for your DVS, uplink, and also management. I will bind another network port. Okay, so I will bind another network port here. So I will name this as storage. Okay, this port is used for storage connection. Binding mode, also active backup. So when you create a new network bind ports, you can always select both ports together. Then confirm. So your CNA node now come with 2 aggregation ports together. Okay. Now this aggregation port can be used as a DVS uplink. They can also use for your CNA logical interface used for management services and also storage, etc. Okay. So once the aggregation port is created on CNA1, you see that management, aggregate, and storage is ready. Then I will create the logical interface. So under the logical interface, I will add in a new storage port. Okay, so where do you want to plug this logical port to? I will just select storage, aggregation port. Next, then I will put in storage port, for example. So what is the IP that I'm going to use? So for the storage port, the pre-designed IP is 192.168.18.101 for CNA1. So I will put in this particular IP address into it. So 18.101 subnet mask /24, and also VLAN ID 0. Okay, next, and confirm. Okay, so done for the storage port creation. So you will see that the storage port comes with this IP, and then it is actually run on the storage aggregation port. Okay, so I will do the same thing for CNA2 also. So when I go to CNA2, check on the physical NIC card. It's having 4 ports. Then go to aggregate ports. Select the MGMT aggregation port. Add in extra physical network port into it. One has active backup. Okay, so this particular port will have 2 ports connected. And I will add in another extra bind network ports. Okay, so here I will just put in storage, active backup. Okay, select both ports. Okay. So in this Huawei environment, we'll be using flat VLAN. We do not tag any VLAN to any connection here. Okay, just not to complex this scenario. Okay, so next thing will be the logical interface. So click on the add storage port. Okay, so when I click on the storage, so this is the logical storage port. IP address for CNA2 on the storage port will be 192.168.18.102. Okay, 192.168.18.102, subnet mask /24, VLAN ID 0 still, next, and confirm. Okay, so you see that from CNA2, we also added in the new logical ports used by the CNA node. Okay, 102, and it is running on the storage form port that we initially discussed. So you will see this is the pre-design options. Okay, so you already see 101 and 102. Later, I will actually add into the particular IP SAN storage. Okay. So before we actually connect to the storage system, okay, we need to change from Huawei. They already pre-configure the IP storage to us. Okay. So when you move on, okay, let me just show you again. Okay, so over here, they actually map in the name for us already. Okay. So the icon name for the HCIA is actually this one. Okay, so I'm gonna put in the text here. Okay, for both connections. Okay, 0, 1, and 0, 2. Now, for IP SAN environment, okay, for IP SAN environment, so you will see that IP SAN, your LAN need to map to the icon name for CNA1 and also CNA2. Now, this part is already pre-configured by Huawei. So we will need to change the CNA HCIA initiator name to this particular icon name so that the storage system will allow the CNA node to connect to these IP SAN resources. Okay, so let's look into the actual lab. Okay, so where can you change your IQN name? So if I go to CNA1, okay, so under CNA1 configuration, click on the storage adapter. Okay. So under storage adapter, you see this is by default created HCIA storage adapter, mainly used for HCIA initiator to connect to the IP SAN. So this is the pre-configured random worldwide node name, which is your HCIA IQN initiator name. So we'll just modify this to the pre-designed Huawei given IQN name. Let me just copy again here. I can copy my 1911. Okay. So remember, this icon name need to be a match on the IP SAN storage system and also your CNA node. So if you are creating your own lab, make sure you have this IQN name set in your storage and also a CNA, so it will be a sync. Okay. So this is for CNA1. Okay, after you put in, just refresh, it will be a new name here. Then I will do the same thing on CNA2 under storage adapter. Change the default IQN name to the shorter one. Okay, CNA02 and confirm. Okay, so the LAN is already mapped to these two IQN names. So we can try to connect to the storage system. So once your network is ready on the port creation, everything, and also the IQN storage adapter, next you can move on to the storage configuration. So on the storage configuration, when you click on the storage resources, okay, this is where you can connect to your IP SAN and also your NFS. Okay? So let me just give you some note here. So if you go under storage resources, okay, this is where you connect to IP SAN, okay, or iSCSI storage. Okay, also connect to NFS storage. They can also connect to Fusion storage here. Okay, so this is where you will initially connect to it. So this is the nodes. Okay, one is IPSAN, NFS, and also Fusion storage. So we'll be doing the first one. Okay, so let's do it. So when I click on add storage resource, okay, initially they'll ask you what types do you want to use. So under type you have IPSAN, next will be NFS, and also Fusion storage block. Okay, for example. So I'll put in the name here. I'm connecting to the IPSAN storage. Okay. So what is the IP address for my IPSAN? It's actually 192.168.123.1. Okay, 123.1. So I will repeat the IP for the management and also the IP used for the actual iSCSI connection. Okay. So we'll see that for storage IP, iSCSI will be using 3260. Okay, to add in the storage resources. This is from the VRM perspective. And then when you click on associate host, you are able to select which host to connect to this iSCSI storage LAN. Okay, so when I click on next, okay, I can expand and select both nodes will be also connecting to the IPSAN storage system. Okay, click next. So after you click on confirm, they will connect and try to scan for the storage device. Okay, so to check on the task, okay, you will see that the IPSAN is already added in. So to check on the task, go to system under task logs. So CNA1 and 2 is connected to the iSCSI or IPSAN storage successfully. So they are scanning the storage itself. Okay, it might take some time before they will detect it. Okay, so this is for the storage resource options. So later you will have the storage device. Standard storage device, you will able to see local disk, okay, FC disk. Okay. So for local disk, just do a rescan, and FC disk, just do a rescan. If SAN, okay, FC, SAN, zoning, already done. Then from the CNA, you do not need to do anything. Okay. Unlike IPSAN, NFS, and Fusion storage, you do not need to connect to anything. So local disk, you can click on the storage device and rescan directly. For FC disk, fiber channel LAN, okay, fiber channel LAN to be exact, Okay, not confused, fiber channel LAN. You need to make sure your FC SAN zoning is already done, connecting your CNA node FC connection to the storage. Then you just perform a rescan. Then you will be able to see the LAN resources. Okay. So for third one, it will be IP SAN LAN. Okay, we scan after associate host. Okay. So this is the option. Then for NFS, okay, similar. Okay, then third one will be Fusion storage, also similar option. Okay. So these are generally a few types of storage devices you can able to use. If you are installing on your own physical server, it might come with internal local disk. You can utilize that to create your data store if you want to. Okay. So this is for the storage device. Let's see. Okay, succeeded already. So I will go back to the resource pools. So storage will generally see all this ready. Okay. Then when I click on the CNA1, okay, just to make sure we see the device on the CNA1 and 2 perspective. So when you click on the storage resources, you will see that I already associated to the IP SAN storage that we already did just now together. Then on CNA1, let's check on the storage device and see whether do we able to detect this or not. So you will see that over here, okay, after a rescan, I'm able to detect there is one disk with 500 GB running on IP SAN type. So if you have a local disk installed to your server, you will have the type here called local. Okay, that can be used to create a data store also. Okay, so this is on CNA1. Then I will show you on the CNA2 perspective. So CNA2 similar. I will be able to detect also the IP SAN LAN here. Ready? So we'll be using the IP SAN LAN for our subsequent lab environment. Okay. So this is for the detection to make sure CNA1 and 2 able to see the data store. So I will go back to the storage here. So I will configure the storage from the cluster VRM level. It will be easier to see. So storage device, detected IP SAN. Then when I click on the data store, okay, so this is where you can add in a new data store. So you see that there is a default local data store added in CNA1. This is used for the VRM machine. Okay. So I will click on add data store. So on the add data store, which storage device do you want to select for? So you can also fine tune what kinds of types of storage to show. So you will see generally we have 5 types of them that I will show just now from the notes. Okay, so you have the local disk, you have the FC SAN LAN, IP SAN LAN, NAS, NFS, and also Fusion storage. So depends on what types of resources or device that you're using, then you need to connect to the storage first before you're able to see the storage device here. Okay, so I'll be selecting the IP SAN LAN resources. Next. So what is the name? I will just put in same thing, IP SAN, to actually differentiate it. Okay, so next thing will be virtualized or non-virtualized storage. So you will see that if you go for virtualization, here we'll be using the cluster file system called the VIMS, okay, Virtual Image Management System that we discussed yesterday in the storage topic. If you go for raw disk mapping, they'll be using as raw, okay. You can also utilize IP SAN as a non-virtualized format, but you will not get all the virtual machine feature that we discussed before, like live migration whatsoever. So it's recommended to go for virtualization, okay, for more feature. Then when you scroll down, okay, remember you should select to format. Yes, so they will format the disk with the VIMS file system. If not, your data store will not able to be used to create your virtual machine later. Okay, remember these are the steps. Okay. So this is also pretty important to make sure which particular LAN that is mapped to your CNA node, not to have any data on it. If not, your data will get lost when you actually add it as a data store. So they will format everything from that particular disk. Okay, so when I go to the associate host, I can select the entire cluster. Okay, after I format and create the data store, I will able to connect to both CNA node. Click next. Okay, they will ask you formatting the storage device will erase everything on it. Then confirm. Okay, confirm again to add in the data store. Okay, so refresh data store. Yes. Wait for a while. Let me turn the task center. Okay, so the data store is added into CNA 1 and 2, and it is still loading and formatting. So if you configure from the cluster storage level, you can actually perform the task to connect to multiple CNA nodes at the same time. So initially here, what they do here is the CNA 1 is actually formatting the LAN to VMS. Then later CNA2 were able to connect to it. That's why you will see that the percentage here is actually different. So I'm actually doing the storage connection portion here. So to connect CNA 1 and 2 into the IP SAN storage and utilize the LAN resources, provision to them as a data store for your virtual machine. Okay. So later after the data store added in, I will also show you how you can actually add in the ports for the management DVS. Wait some time here. So remember, all the things that we actually do here is a sequential task. You should complete all this before you can move on to the later stage where you can create your virtual machine. Okay. So you cannot actually skip some tasks and jump over to the other tasks. Then you might have some issue later on. Okay. Okay, so you will see that CNA1 already succeeded the task. Now they will continue to connect from CNA2 host. So you see CNA2 complete quite fast. Okay, so we are waiting for the LUN to be formatted to VIMS type. So you will see here CNA2 only come with one data store, and also CNA1 come with two. Okay, so you will see IP send. Data store is now running VIMS type. So this is virtualization format, okay, file system. So we do support a lot of extra feature set like team provisioning and live migration. Okay. So this is how you prepare your storage data store. Okay. Before you can actually go to network configuration and later to the virtual machine. Okay. So these are the things here. So next thing I will show you how to add in the port on the DVS perspective. So when you click on the network configuration, so by default, they created one management DVS here in the CNA node. Okay. So over here, you will see when you scroll down, they already connected the CNA1 management aggregation port to this DVS as a uplink. Okay. As an uplink. So when you click on port group, they also pre-created the management port group. Access type VLAN 0. Okay, it's a flat network like I mentioned earlier. And they did not define any VLAN pool here yet. Okay? So if you do require to isolate your virtual machine from VLAN perspective, you should add in the VLAN group here. Okay, so we can add at least from 1 to maybe 4,000. Okay? So that you can now utilize any VLAN ID for the port group use. Okay. So I will just leave other setting as default. So I will click on the uplink group here. For the management DVS, okay. I'll click on add. Then select CNA2, management aggregation port. Okay, similar to the CNA1. Okay, so once you connect the uplink to CNA2, CNA1 and CNA2 is basically connected via this distributed virtual switch, like I mentioned just now. Okay, so they'll be utilizing this port for intercommunication, okay, from the software level. So your physical link is basically interconnected with a layer 2 switch equipment. If you still remember, yesterday we do actually discuss about it. Okay. So your traffic will be passing to the layer 2 switch equipment, then also forward to the other host, okay, to be actually communicated. Okay, so this is the DVS option. Okay. So when you click on create DVS, if you want to create another one more, okay, so we'll see that over here, okay, you have a few options. Okay. The switch type do matters if you are using different types of network connection. Okay, use some more private SRLV. Okay, so over here you will see for the network connection, let me just put another one here. Okay, so for your DVS type, okay, we have the common type, then the SRIOV, and also the user mode. This is VNDQ, if I'm mistaken. Okay. So common mode using your CNA, okay. Normal, network card, NRC card can be supported. Then they will be using CNA host, CPU, and also RAM memory to provide virtual switching. okay, to provide virtual switching. So the common mode is the normal mode that we use that can support any types of network supported card. Okay, so for CNA node, they will have a list of supported network card. Okay, this is a normal network interface that can be used. So if you go for SRIOV, you need to purchase a higher end NIC with SRIOV feature. So what does this differ in? The particular NIC ASIC will provide virtual switching capability. So you see that using SRIOV and also the user mode, generally they are providing similar functionality, whereby if you do not want to utilize the CNA, CPU, and RAM memory to provide virtual switching to interconnect your virtual machine, you can now pass through the task, okay, pass this task to the network card. Using the ASIC chip, they will help you to do this virtual switching functionality. Okay, so here will be maybe using SRIOV will be lower latency and also similar to the VMDQ. So if you have a network card that can support SRIOV or VMDQ, you can try to utilize either these two modes. Okay, so if you're not sure and no idea, you can always choose the first option, as always. So SRIOV and user mode VMDQ is mainly designed for higher performance network card that they can also help you to do the virtual switching task. Okay, so you can Google up SRIOV, then they will show you a list of Intel network card that supports this particular protocol mode. Okay, so this is the DVS type that you can actually use. Okay, jumbo frame. Okay, jumbo frame will be used if you do enable jumbo frame on a 10G connection. Okay, so if your server hardware is using 10G network interface and your switch do support jumbo frame, then you need to configure on both sides so that you can adjust your frame size from the default 1500 bytes to 9000 bytes. Okay, it is also supported in the DVS mode. Okay, so this is on the network portion. Okay, so pretty easy. Okay, so your CNA node is now ready with data store and also network connection. Okay, so this is the particular CNA host configuration. So we basically done for a few tasks already. Let me just double check. Okay, so I already show you how to connect the network port binding configuration and also show you the DVS uplink and configure the storage connection. Then the CNA node now able to see the iSCSI LAN, and I add in the data store to it already. Okay, so the data store network, everything is now already done. Then we will move on to the virtual machine lifecycle management. Okay, so this particular task will take a bit time because you need to create a virtual machine from scratch. Okay, so under the, let me just put in more here. So under the create virtual machine, you need to create a bare VM. Okay, this is actually empty virtual machine. And then install OS to it. Okay, so I will basically create a VM and install Windows 7 into it just to show some tasks required, okay, for you to do that. Okay, so let's move on. So when I click on the management cluster, okay, management cluster. So under the management cluster, I do have a button called create VM. Okay. So when I click on create VM, So to create a virtual machine, we come with a few options over here. Okay, so I will demo the first option now. Later, I will show you how you can deploy your virtual machine using template, okay, which is the second option here. Okay, next. So this VM, I will call it the Windows 7 virtual machine. Okay, Windows 7 virtual machine. Sorry about that. Let's click something. Okay, create VM, Windows 7. Okay, which particular site, if you separate into different locations, if you have any, and also your cluster, we have only one. Then I'll be installing Windows operating system, and I am using Windows 7 Professional 32-bit here. Okay, Windows 7 Professional 32-bit here. Now this is pretty important. Okay? When you're creating your virtual machine, okay, the operating system used, okay, and also OS version, this will determine, okay, your floppy drive, okay, floppy disk contain driver for PhD. Okay. They do also affect your VM2 for OS version. Okay. So you need to make sure that you select the correct operating system that will be used in your virtual machine. If not, later you are not able to get the floppy disk driver to install your VHD disk driver for the operating system installation to detect. So if you cannot actually solve this task, your operating system cannot install into your VM. So you basically stuck there halfway. So if you cannot do that, maybe you need to recreate another VM with the correct virtual OS version to get the similar correct driver. Okay, so this is the particular information that why you need to select the correct OS and also OS version. So next, okay, I'll be selecting the IP SAN. So if you are using Huawei ELAB that you will get later, if you have any, do not use the AutoDS data store. It will not work because this is a simulation environment. Okay, they are using a nested VM environment. They do not support local disk as a data store for normal virtual machine. They can only use for VRM at least. So you need to add in the IP SAN LAN as a data store in order to create your virtual machine. Okay, so next one. So you need to define your resources. Okay, how many CPU and RAM memory. So let's see over here. When I click on the CPU arrow to expand it, so what option do you actually have here? Okay, so I define, okay, CPU equals to 2, for example. Then next thing they will ask you, okay, number of cores per socket. Now this is a pretty tricky information. So how is it differ? So if you put in, okay, here to 1 core, okay, so your CPU is actually having 2, right? So it will be equals to 2 socket CPU. Okay, 2 socket CPU. Each socket comes with 1 core itself. Okay, so this is a pretty important information. If you are not familiar with CPU architecture, okay, generally it will be looking something like this. Okay, let me just draw it up. So on your main board, So you will come with one maybe CPU socket, CPU 1 socket, and then CPU, sorry about that. Okay, another socket here, maybe CPU 2 socket. Okay. So over here in your CPU socket, this is basically your physical CPU that we normally can be purchased in the market, for example. You can install to the main board. So over here, you will have smaller. Okay, what they call inside is your cores. Okay. Cores. Now, when you have scenario like this, okay, you will need to remember, okay, client operating system like Windows 7, Windows 10, etc. Okay, they can only support maximum 2 socket only. Okay, due to the architecture. So if you need more processing power, you should, okay, increase more core on per socket basis. Okay, per socket basis. So this is the configuration. So if you go for server OS, okay, like Windows Server 2016 or like 19, the latest one, they can support a lot CPU socket. It will based on how the application is written. Some application will utilize more socket to do parallel processing. Some application might utilize more core count to process the application. So this will need to tie with the application part. So from our case as a virtual machine management administrator, we need to know how your operating system works here. So if you want to increase more processing power, you need to adjust the numbering here. Because your client OS can support only 2 socket maximum. So if you plan to create a 4 core CPU for your virtual machine, okay, I should put in again numbers of core to socket equals to maybe 4, for example. Okay. Then it will in turns to 1 CPU with 4 cores. Okay. So let's see over here when I put in 4 over here. Okay. When you increase the number, they'll tell you that okay, number of slots has exceeded the number of slots supported by the OS because you put in Windows 7 earlier, so they give you a note here. If you still insist of increasing the number here, you can't. So you need to increase the number below to more core number per socket. Okay. So maybe 4. Okay, so maybe 4. So this is the relationship between your socket and also your core count. Okay. So this is the configuration for the CPU. Then you can also see the RAM memory. Okay. So the RAM memory here, you can put in 4 GB. So you can also reserve and limit over here. So for your RAM memory, okay. So VM, the RAM, you can put in the maximum allocation to maybe 4 GB. Then you can also put in a reserve like 2 GB RAM memory. So this will be the minimum allocation. So whether the virtual machine use it or not, the system will not really care because you instruct them to put in the reserve here. So the 2 GB of space from your RAM memory from the physical hardware will be reserved by this virtual machine. Okay, prepare for them to use. Okay, so limit will also actually give you a new maximum usage. So normally we don't really use a limit here. We normally will be using reserve plus the capacity that you actually define here. Maybe here act as a minimum and also maximum allocation. Okay, so this is on the RAM memory, so I will not reserve any. Then when you go to the disk number 1, okay, so this one they already put in the data store, and the configuration mode will be access, tick provisioning, lazy 0, and also team provisioning. So this one we actually talked about it yesterday. Tick provisioning, lazy 0, they will reserve the space but not formatting it before use. Access is basically common mode that we discussed yesterday. It's used in older versions of Fusion Compute. Access is basically tick provisioning eager 0. They will reserve the space and also format the block, okay, to prepare for the VM to be used. So for performance, access will be the highest. Okay, middle performance will be tick provisioning, lazy 0. Team provisioning will be the least performance, but they will generally give you more space utilization ratio. Okay, so everybody will be sharing the free space together. Okay, if you are not writing to that space yet. Okay. So next thing will be your bus type. Okay, so virtual I/O is preferred. Okay, as they give you more performance. Okay. So ID is only used for CD-ROM, for example, and things like this. Okay. So best to go for virtual I/O. So if you select virtual I/O, you will require the driver to be detected, okay, from the floppy disk. So when you go to network card 1, same thing, network card is also virtual I/O driver. Okay. You can also define which security group to use and things like this, etc. Okay, so this one I will just put it as default. Then next, and confirm. Okay, so to double check your virtual machine status, you can click on the management cluster again on the left, then click on the VM tab on the right. Then they will show you which particular virtual machine now exists in this cluster. Okay, in this cluster. So you see that Windows 7 machine is starting and it is now running here. Okay, so when I click on the Windows 7 virtual machine, it will bring you to the virtual machine property. Okay, so now before we can install the virtual machine operating system, we need to mount the CD-ROM ISO to the VM. So initially you need to, let me just minimize the VRM. Now, if you're using Huawei eLab resources, you need to make sure you actually pre-downloaded the ISO file, Windows 7 EN, from the FTP to your local, so that I will later select this ISO file and mount it to the VM inside this terminal machine. Okay. So how can you actually access to the ISO? You can go to FTP, shortcut here. Okay. So you should get the FTP link and the username and password from the eLab resources team. So you go to tools, 03, under 01 ISO, Windows. There you can get hold of all the Windows ISO file. If you want to test for Linux, you do have the Linux ISO here also for x86. Okay, this. So I already pre-downloaded the Win 7 English version I saw here. So remember to download the one with EN. It will be English version. Okay, so let's go back to the VRM. So before we can install the operating system, we need to first mount the ISO. So how can you do that? Under the virtual machine property, click on configuration. Okay. So under configuration, there's a small menu here in the middle. Scroll down to the bottom, then select CD and DVD-ROM drive. Okay. So from here, you just click on confirm to open up the mount drive window. So we'll see that by default, your browser might actually block pop-up window. So click on option to allow the pop-up. Then they will show this small window. Now, in order to actually do mounting, you will require the FC Client plugin. Okay. So FC Portal Client plugin. This is used for ISO mounting. Okay. It is also used for template import and also export. Things like this. Okay. So you can actually get it download from VRM. Okay, and install to local. Okay. So this particular terminal machine already pre-downloaded and installed to the machine. So I will be using this plugin for ISO mounting. If you want to use it for template import export, you will require the same plugin too. Okay. So when you boot up this particular browser, they will ask you. Okay, let me just start again. It's too long already. Let's confirm. Then they'll detect the plugin. So you have it installed, you will show something like this. Okay, click on open link. Then the plugin tool is now on. Okay. So if you did not have the plugin tool, let me just show you the screenshot I have. Okay. So if you do not actually have the plugin tool yet, you will see after they say that your plugin cannot be detected or detection failed, that you see just now. So in order for you to install the plugin, you will see here there's a message. Click on the link. Then the software will be downloaded from the VRM to your local machine. Okay. Then after download successfully, you run the installation for the plugin tool. After the installation done, then you come back to the either import VM or to the CD mounting. Then they were able to prompt you a small window for you to open up the application. Okay. So this is one of the screenshots that I get. So message will be similar. This is the one comes from the import template options. Okay. So you need to look for this link button, click on it. Okay. So if you have the plugin tool installed and they are able to detect it, you will see that the information here will be a bit different. You do not have the link for you to click and download the software. Okay. So if the plugin tool is ready, so I will able to select File, ISO, and Browse. So they will prompt for the plugin tool to run again. So I'll just open link to run the plugin tool. So this particular file browser is the plugin tool software. Okay. So I will just go to desktop, ISO folder, select Windows 7 EN, ISO file, and open. Okay, so you have the path here already. Then check on restart the VM now to install the OS. Then click on confirm. Okay, so they will prompt again for you to run. Click on open link. Okay, so the CD-ROM is now mounting. I need to wait for some time, maybe a minute or two. Okay, so you will get this message, mounted successfully. Then you can continue. So when you click on confirm, you will see that this window is now mounting your CD-ROM or ISO file to your VM virtual machine. Now remember, this small window for CD-ROM mounting cannot be closed. If you close the window, the ISO mounting connection will get disconnected. Okay, so after you see this unmount button message, meaning it is already mounted, you should minimize this window, okay, to make sure the ISO is still mounted here. Okay, don't touch it. Then I will go back to the VRM virtual machine property, go to summary. There's a button called login using VNC. So this is the place where you can connect to the virtual machine console. Okay, so you will see this particular small window. So your virtual machine console is now showing you loading the Windows installation file. Okay, so we will require some storage performance in order for it to load a bit faster, because this is a nested environment. It's a expected performance. Okay, so we will start the Windows installation. Okay, so this is the starting point of the Windows installation. So I will just select to my respective country. Should go next. Okay, click install now. Okay, you need to be patient because the mouse cursor is having some delay because we are connecting to the remote desktop in our channel. And then from the remote desktop, we connect to the virtual machine console. So when you are utilizing the virtual machine console, some performance delays is expected because the driver is still not installed properly yet. So later after we apply everything, the performance will be a bit smoother. Okay. So when you're installing the operating system, it will be having some performance issue, which is expected. Okay, so next one, when you click on custom, is where you need to select your disk. So when you see this, it's empty, so do not worry. It is expected here. Like I already mentioned, if you are installing a operating system, you need to select the correct operating system version so that you're able to load the driver for your virtual disk. If not, your installation will basically stuck here forever. You can't do anything about it. So when you click on the load driver, you click on the load driver, so they will actually come up here, load driver, click on browse. So your driver will be inside the floppy disk drive, okay? A drive. Expand it. Expand the A drive, then look for x86. OK. So you will see they able to detect one of the driver that suits your particular operating system. So if you don't see any, you can always uncheck this, hide driver that is not compatible. So there will be certain driver that is not compatible, but you're still able to utilize it. Okay, so I will just utilize the one that's suitable for my environment. Just click next. Then they will start to install the virtual disk driver for the Windows 7 installation. So this template driver is mainly for the Windows installer to detect and connect to the drive. After the operating system installation has been done, we need to install the other driver with the VM2. Okay, so now after you load up the driver, you're able to see your virtual disk that we have created earlier. So 40 GB is the maximum size. So you can click on next. So they will start the installation. Okay, so the installation might take some time. Okay, let's take a break. Okay, so you can actually stop a break. Okay, so if you have any question, you can post it to the WhatsApp group. Okay, we'll have people there to answer your question. So I'll be away a little while for the break. Okay. Okay, while we are in the break, I need you guys some favor. So we do have some sample question for you to study for the written exam. I just need you guys to go to this website, maths.infosite.net. Okay. Then in this website, create a new account with a valid email to verify your account. This is to prepare the account for tomorrow use. Okay. So tomorrow, I will need you guys to complete the post-test question. Okay, this is a short question just to see whether you actually learned something from the training. This is not the actual exam, it's just a short test. And also the evaluation form for this training. Okay. So it will be two, one from our company, the other one from Huawei. Okay, all this will be done for tomorrow. So you will need to have an account in the RMS website for you to join the post-test question. So after we verify that you already done the post-test short question and also two evaluation form, you can actually access to the sample question to study. Not the 100% actual question, but at least some sample question for you to prepare for exam. It will be better than nothing. Okay. So tomorrow we will go through this in the last session, okay, and I will show you where you can actually request the sample question access permission. So for today, okay, help me to actually do this, a list. Okay. So this too is for tomorrow. Okay. Okay, so I will post this message to the student group for other people to see. Okay, so I will continue with the installation. Okay, so let's continue now. Okay, so virtual machine installation has been done. Okay, so you will see this welcome screen. So this is basically your out of the box screen, we will call it. Okay, let me just check here. Okay, so this is the out of box screen. We'll use it later. Okay, so your virtual machine is actually a new installation machine. So just put in user as the username. Okay, so I will leave it as empty password. Okay, ask me later for Windows update. Okay, so I will be utilizing my local time. Next, to finalize the settings. Okay, virtual machine installation on the operating system has been done. Now, the next thing here is, okay, let me just check. Okay, so under computer, we have one drive that's available. Okay, so like 40 gigabyte. Okay, so let me just close it. And I would like to show you now your initially network connection. You will see that below here. Okay, so for a network connection as a new machine is basically empty. Okay, so you will see there is no network connection available. Just to show you that, let me just let me open up the device manager. Okay, so you will see here we have like 4 gigabyte. Okay, 4 gigabytes of RAM memory, and we are using Skylake processor. Okay, let me just check on the task manager. How many core do you have? Okay. Okay, so you will see we have only 2 CPU available. Just let me check. Okay, let me open up the device manager. Okay, so you will see there are some missing driver. Okay, so this is some extra notes. Okay, so we will need to install the VM2. So this VM2 will give you virtual added virtual machine feature, and they will also help you to install missing driver in virtual machine. So this guy generally will replace the driver, and the VM2 will provide network card driver for key use. Then you will also provide agent software for VRM to manage virtual machine. So these are the few feature provided by the VM2 that we will now do installation for the virtual machine, so that later on you will have network connection available. Okay, and also certain driver like drive and also USB or this communication. So how to perform an installation for VM2? Just let me minimize this. Okay. And also this. Okay, so I will minimize the console also. Okay, so after the operating system installation has been done, you should open up the CD DVD-ROM mounting window here. Okay, just close it to dismount the ISO file. Okay, so that the virtual machine will not have any current mounting connection, so that we can facilitate to mount the VM2 for installation. So next thing, come back to the virtual machine summary under the virtual machine property. So under the virtual machine property, click on more on the right button. Okay, so move to tools and select mount tools. Okay, so confirm to mount the VM2. So the task already submitted successfully. Okay, so once the tool is mounted, when you go back to the virtual machine console, okay, you should see an autoplay window comes up. Okay, either you access from the autoplay window, okay, or you can even go to the computer option to see there's a new CD-ROM detected, okay, with this installation tool. So you can select setup, right click, run as administrator, okay, to install the virtual machine tool software. Okay, click on the installation part. Okay, accept the license agreement, click on install. Okay, so they will load the installation. Now you will see that from the virtual machine perspective under the summary, we can't see much information, especially on the memory and the disk usage. This is because your VM2 is not ready yet. So after the VM2 installation has been done, later from the virtual machine, we can now capture memory usage information, and also disk usage information using the VM2 has an agent software. Okay, so later you will see some differences here. Okay, VM2 installation done, pretty fast, finish. Then you need to do a restart. Okay, for the virtual machine to apply the driver. Okay, so you will see the VM2 installation has been done on the top below, bottom right corner. You will have a new icon here in yellow. This is actually your VM2 software. So it is now running already. Okay, so after that, you will see from, let me minimize the virtual machine. So in the VRM, okay, So you should remove the tool first from your virtual machine in case you forget. Because if the VM2 ISO is still mounted to your virtual machine, there are certain operations will not be able to be done. So after the VM2 installation finish, you should unmount the tool manually from the VM just to avoid any further issue will happen, especially when you try to create maybe snapshot and other things, they might actually block you up. So this is on the virtual machine. Let's see. So it might take some time before the agent software can help you to detect all these things like memory usage and disk usage. Okay, so after the VM2 installation has been done, okay, we can go back to the device manager just to check the differences. Okay, so we click on device manager. Okay, so you will see lesser driver missing has been solved. So you will see the network part is actually Red Hat Virtual I/O. Your disk drive is also Red Hat Virtual I/O. All these are the driver that is missing earlier. Okay. So let me just, okay. Next thing I will do a demo for your disk. Okay. So you will see that over here, first thing is your virtual disk. So the virtual disk is now having only one drive. Okay, so I will further add in another disk for the machine. So let me just double check. Okay, from the disk management, okay, from the computer, go to manage. Okay, so under disk management, you will able to see how many disks is mounted to your virtual machine currently. So I have only one virtual disk and also one CD-ROM by default. Okay. So I will now do an online disk addition to the VM without shutting down the virtual machine. Okay, so let's minimize the VM. Okay. So for some time later, you will see that when I refresh my VM, now your virtual machine comes with extra information like the memory usage and also the virtual disk usage. This is another way for you to also confirm whether your virtual machine 2 is added successfully or not. Okay, so when you scroll down, this is only one virtual disk added to the VM. Okay. So when I go to configuration, okay, so under configuration, I can select disk. Yeah. So this is where you can change your disk configuration for the virtual machine. Okay. So for me, I will be attaching another new disk. So you can click attach disk. Okay. So if you have not created the disk earlier, you can always click on create and attach disk. You can attach this. Select the data store available for you. Then I will put in the name here for Windows 7 disk 2, for example. Okay, Windows 7 disk 2. How much capacity do you want? 20 gigabyte. Okay, so you will see the particular configuration mode is similar like the original virtual disk that you see earlier. Okay, so leave all other things default. Then confirm. Okay, so this will be created. It is a VHD created on the data store and attached to this Windows 7 machine. Okay. So now you see there is an addition this Windows 7 disk 2 from the virtual machine. property. So after you see this ready, and we can go to the virtual machine console, and you will see in the disk management, you now see another new disk added in over here, which is unknown, disk number 1. So in order to utilize it, you need to click on this square on the left, select initialize this. Okay, so if you're using this lesser than 2 terabyte, you can always go for MBR. More than that, GPT is advisable. If not, you cannot detect more than that actually. Okay, so the disk is now online. Then you should click on this area, right click, select new simple volume. Okay. Now this is to create the partition and also format the drive for you to use and write some data. Okay, so I will just put it here. Okay, these two, maybe data and PFS, quick format. The next, finish. Okay, so after it is formatted, then you see they assign the drive letter called E, these two data. So I will minimize the disk management. Okay, so you will now have another new disk ready. Okay, another new disk ready. So this is how you can add in another extra virtual disk. Okay, so this is one of the options. Okay, so let me just minimize this. Okay, and open up the disk management again. So the next thing I will show you how you can add in extra capacity to the disk. So you will see that from the virtual disk just now that I created is actually 20 gigabyte under disk number 1. So if your environment say that, oh, I might require more space to write my data, now I should expand the disk. So the virtual disk on the virtual machine do support online expansion. So let me minimize the VM. So we'll come back to the virtual machine property. So when I select these two, okay, so when I scroll down, then I move the bar to the further right. So we'll see on this particular drive, okay, you can click on more, then select adjust capacity. Okay, so I can now actually resize. So over here, you see this capacity can be expanded but not reduced. So remember, the virtual disk on the VM can only support expansion. So if you increase too huge, later you cannot actually string it. So I will increase the drive capacity maybe from 20 to 60 gigabyte. So click on save. So all these tasks can be done online. And after you add in the capacity here in more, so remember the menu is actually at the bottom bar on the further right, at the last column of your virtual disk. Okay, this is where you can access your expand disk capacity. Because it is a web interface design, so you will need to scroll here and there if your resolution is too small. Okay, this is expected problem you have sometimes. So when I go back to the VM console, okay, so we'll see if your disk management cannot detect the space automatically, you still see 20 gigabyte, no issue. Click on action. Okay, in computer management, then select rescan disk. Okay, rescan disk. So after you perform rescan disk, straight away you will see an extra 40 gigabytes of capacity added into this number 1. This is pretty easy as compared to physical machine. Okay, so this is another beauty and advantages for virtual machine. So in order to utilize the free space, you can either create another partition on it, okay, it will be another drive letter, or you can expand the earlier partition that is staying on the same disk. So to do that, right click on the partition here in E. So you will have the extend volume options. Okay, so when you click on extend volume, next they were able to detect there are extra capacity available on the disk. So you would just leave it as default. They will by default select all the capacity extra available in the disk. Next, and finish. So you see that your partition now expanded to 60 gigabyte. Okay, straight away online. You see that my VM do not require to do a restart or shutdown whatsoever. So if I go back to my computer, okay, here you just press on F5 to refresh. You will see that straight away the number from 19 gigabyte now changed to 59 gigabyte. Okay, so this is your 60 gigabyte drive added in and also expand online without any issue. Okay. So this is for the drive configuration. So the next thing I will show you network card, for example. Okay. So when I right click on the network connection, go to open network and sharing center. Okay, click on the adapter settings. So you will see there is only one virtual network card added in, okay, only one port available. So I will minimize the VM console just to show you how you can add in an extra network card to the VM so that it can also detect it online without shutting down the virtual machine. So when you click on NIC card over here, and I see, so you see we have only one. So this MAC address is assigned by the VRM randomly, okay, so that you will not have any conflict on the virtual machine. Click on add NIC. Okay, so you can add in another extra network card into this virtual machine. So which DVS do you want to connect, okay, and which port group do you want to use? So I will just add in another extra one, share the same VLAN, things like this, confirm. Okay, so you have two network adapter available for this VM. So after you add in from the virtual machine property, so I will go to the virtual machine here. Straight away, they detect another new adapter in the network connection. So you can proceed to utilize this connection and set another IP for it if you want to. Okay. So this is how you actually add in a network interface card easily. So this is where you can manage your network interface card. So when you click on more, you can always change the attributes for this NIC card. For example, network adapter 1, I can modify the port group. Okay. So you can change to other port group if you want to, but they will disconnect the network connection if you are changing the attributes, and also delete the NIC card. Okay, so adding in the network card, you can also delete it online, and when you go back to the console, the network connection will be gone. Okay, so this is how you can manage your virtual network interface card for the virtual machine. Okay, so this is the network card and the disk part. So you can also check your CPU, things like this. Okay, so this is RAM memory. So all this, if your operating system supports some extra feature, you can also add it online, but in Windows 7, we cannot do so. So I will not do this now. And next thing I will show you is the snapshot. So we'll see here when you go to snapshot for the Windows 7 here. Now you can utilize snapshot to protect your data temporarily. Okay, I will just simulate another lab here using snapshot. Okay, so I will go back to the virtual machine console. Okay, let me open up. So we'll go back to the File Explorer. Okay, go to these two data. So I will create a new, okay, maybe a text file. Name it as test snapshot, for example. Okay. So I will put in the content here, test snapshot function. Okay, test snapshot function. Save this. Okay. So you have a new file added in here in drive E. Let me just minimize this one. Okay, so to protect this particular data with a snapshot, after you have the data created here, next thing, minimize the console. Go to the virtual machine property here. Under snapshot tab, you should create the snapshot. Okay, so I will put in test snapshot. Yeah. Okay, click on confirm. So you will see that the message here shows you it does not cover RDM disk. So if you have an external LAN mounted to your virtual machine, maybe using iSCSI connection, those disks should be managed by the storage system individually. It's not a virtual disk format. We cannot create snapshot for those kinds of disks mounted to the VM. So this is pretty important, especially when you are working with the production environment. And confirm. Okay, so let me change the view again. So when you come back and forth to the snapshot tab, you will see there is a new snapshot created called test snapshot. Okay, called test snapshot. Okay, so for the test snapshot to work, okay, let's go back to your virtual machine console. Okay, so I have the snapshot now protecting my virtual machine data. I can now delete my text file. Yes, and I also empty my recycle bin. Yes, so you will see both sides is now empty. So now, how to recover the file? We can now restore from the snapshot. Okay, let me just minimize the console. Okay, so you have a test snapshot here. To restore the virtual machine snapshot, just select the snapshot here. Okay, this is the time when they create the snapshot. Click on resume VM. So this button is basically refers to restoring to this snapshot. Okay, they use resume VM as the name. So when you click on resume VM, so you're basically rolling back to this snapshot status. Click on confirm. So your virtual machine, okay, will roll back and also restart to a different machine state, okay, with the snapshot captured data. Okay, so after the snapshot restore, reboot it. Then let's check on the drive and see whether the data is there or not. Okay, so you will see here, the test snapshot text file is still in this too because we roll back to the snapshot. So the snapshot, when you create it, they actually capture this test snapshot text file inside of it. So when you always roll back to this snapshot, you will still get this file. Okay. Now the problem here is when you create a new file, then the new file will actually get deleted also. Okay, so let's try here. Okay, so this is the snapshot. Okay, called test snapshot. So this one I will okay, delete it again. Okay, so I will empty the recycle bin. So now this particular test snapshot is protected by the virtual machine snapshot that we have created earlier. But now when you try to create some extra data, let me create another new text file just to simulate the environment. Okay, so this one I will put in after snapshot creation. Okay. Say, okay, so you will see that now we have another new file called after snapshot creation file. So I will do the snapshot rollback again for one time. You will see what happens to the file actually. So when I click on resume VM, again, confirm. So your snapshot, if it is still there, you can always use it to restore unlimited times. Okay, they will just eat in more changes capacity in your data store. So now I restore to the snapshot again for the VM. Okay, so restore to the snapshot done, rebooted. And now when I go to these two data, so you see here, test snapshot recovered already, but your after snapshot creation file is now gone. So please remember, this snapshot is used for rolling back. Okay, rolling back. Okay, please remember that. Now, if you want to have this file and also the later file, okay, after snapshot creation, okay, so both files to be there. You don't want to lose any of it. Okay, you should now minimize it. You should now delete this snapshot. So when you delete the snapshot, they will consolidate the changes. The changes here is referring to the after snapshot creation file. This is the changes after the snapshot creation to push it back into the original VHD. So when you delete the snapshot, okay, they will reflect all the changes into the VM. And you actually lost the point to recover your VM later. Okay. So location will basically go back to normal. So you see the status is still deleting. Okay, go back and forth. So you see the snapshot is now gone. And your virtual machine will have both files together here. Okay. And your virtual machine do not need to do any restart or reboot whatsoever. So when you're deleting a snapshot, you are basically consolidating, okay, or actually injecting your new changes to the VHD and then delete the point in time snapshot to protect your data. Okay, so you will not eat up extra space from that anymore. But if you require to protect these two files again, you should create a snapshot for that. Okay, so this is on the virtual machine snapshot creation. Okay, so later I will try another thing here. Okay. So I will create another file here. Okay. So maybe this is for VM template demo. Okay. So later I will also show you how to utilize a VM to convert as a template and deploy virtual machine from there. Okay. So this is for the template use. Okay, let me minimize. Okay, so to utilize it as a template, so when I go back to the virtual machine property, now before you can convert it as a template, you need to shut down the VM before you can do so. Now over here, you have a few options. Now, if you have the virtual machine 2 running here, as you can see, you can click on the stop button. Okay? So the stop button here refers to your VM power operation. So one will be start is actually power on. So if you go for stop, this is actually graceful shutdown. Okay, graceful shutdown. So they have a few more options here. When you click on more under power, so they have restart, forcibly restart, and forcibly stop. So remember which option you should choose, especially when you're doing some job here. Restart button is referring to graceful restart. Okay, so if you are doing a graceful shutdown or restart, your operating system will not have anything. It's a proper shutdown or restart. So if for any reason your operating system now actually freeze, okay, then you might need to go for forcibly shutdown. This is what they call dirty shutdown. Okay, dirty shutdown. So they do have another forcibly restart button. This is actually for dirty restart. Okay. So in order for you to perform graceful shutdown and also graceful restart, you will require to install the VM tool. If not, you cannot do this operation. VRM will require the VM2 act as an agent software. The agent software VM2 will tell the operating system to perform a shutdown. So you do not need to go into the VM console, click on start shutdown button. Okay, so this is a shortcut from the VRM. So when I click on stop here, I will basically send a shutdown message, okay, or instruction to the VM. So let me check on the console. You see that the console is now shutting down and you lost connection to the VM because it's already power off. Okay, So when you see the status stop is now fully properly shut down. So the type here is still common VM. It's still common VM. Okay, common VM. And then over here, in order for it to utilize as a template, you can move to the further right on this line item, click on more, select template. Then you can convert this VM to a template. Okay, confirm. So this template initially will be used as a golden image or sample image. Inside, it should come with operating system and certain base use application. For example, in one environment, if you are using Windows Server 2019 OS, you should create one template image. Then later from this image, you can deploy as many VM as you want. So I'm using Windows 7, similar. If you are deploying virtual machine for client use, you can also utilize this template to deploy more VM using Windows 7. So I do not need to install the operating system one by one anymore and go through the earlier process for each and every one of the virtual machine. So you actually conclude that process using a template. So I can actually clone and create multiple VM from it. So after you click on the convert template options, so your virtual machine will be missing here because it's now a template VM, it's not a VM anymore. So when you click on the VM template here, you will find your Windows 7 machine now sit in the template side. Okay. So when you have a template here, okay, I can deploy VM using template. Okay, click on deploy VM using template. So this is Windows 7 01, for example. So the selected template is this one, reach site and management cluster, similar. And you can deploy batch of virtual machine. Okay, so you can deploy more than one if you want to from this image concurrently. So I will just choose one because the test environment is a bit slow in storage. So I will just deploy one. Hit next. I can define the same specification or even lower. The drive here you cannot really change because it will need to deploy according to what your template actually has. So the disk part, you cannot change anything. You can only remove the disk maybe after deployment, things like this. You can change your CPU and memory for sure, and also network connection if you need to. So click next. So I will not generate initial password. If you have the VM2, the VM2 can help you to set a password for you if you want to. I do not want to customize my virtual machine. You can do that also with a wizard. Okay, so with a wizard, they will ask you what component name do you want to put in and join domain whatsoever and administrator password or this. This can be done if you have the virtual machine 2 inside the VM. Okay, so I will not use this option. I'll just go to do not customize. Next. Okay, and confirm. Okay. So the virtual machine will now be deployed. Okay. To check, you can go to the System tab under Task Center. You will see your virtual machine is now deploying from the template. Okay, it will take some time because they are doing one-to-one copying, okay, to deploy another virtual machine with the same data set. Okay, so you will see the deployment happen quite fast because the virtual machine is quite small in size. So compared to install the operating system one by one, surely it will give you more benefit in speed. Okay? So once the virtual machine deploy, it is still in stop state. I did not power it on automatically just now. So I click on start, confirm. So your virtual machine will now be power on. Okay. So when you click on login using DNC, okay, just to show you, this machine is actually identical to the one that we have earlier. But now this VM is holding name called Windows 701, and the earlier VM is now a template. Okay, just to show you this comparison. Okay, so you will see that the content in the virtual machine is exactly what we have earlier when I create my VM before I convert it to a template. So any data that you put in, application that you install, it will actually stay in the template image as a sample. So you can utilize this template to deploy as many VMs as possible if you have the resources and data store. Then you will save a lot of time reinstall all these application and operating system. Okay? So this is the template usage, okay, for your VM. So I will also show you, okay, what are the extra features that you can actually do for your virtual machine. So we'll see that when I go to management cluster under VM, okay, so we have two VM here running. One is called the VRM. Another one is called the Windows 701. Okay. So let me see on your particular connection. So you will see that over here under the management cluster, you have CNA1 running VRM01, CNA2 running Windows 702. Okay. So over here, we can provide some certain extra feature. For example, now if you found that, CNA2, I would like to shut down the hardware for certain maintenance, okay, a scheduled planned event, but I still need to keep Windows 701 online without shutting it down. Okay, I just need to keep using it. So I can provide a migration options. Okay, so when you select the VM, there's a migrate button here. So we'll click on migrate. Okay. So if you want to do a migration, okay, especially live migration, you can change your host. You can also change your data store only, running the same host, but the other data store storage, or you can change both if you want to. Now, if you are running on local disk data store, you can change these two together at the same time. I will be changing only the host here. Okay. Next. Okay. So I am doing it on the Windows 701 that is running on CNA host number 1. Now I can only choose the other available node here called the CNA1. Okay? So I'm running on host 2. Now I would like to migrate to host 1. So you observe the virtual machine console here. Okay. So when I click on confirm, confirm again, task submitted successfully. Okay. So when you go to the task center, so the migration is already ongoing from one host to another. And you see, you will just have some slight disconnection. Okay. So the virtual machine is not shut down. They are just moving from one host to another. The network connection will interrupt a little bit when they are actually switching the host. Okay. When they are switching the host. So you see generally here, when you see the message disconnected, meaning your machine already migrated to the other CNA host. So when you click on reconnect, your VM is still online without application down whatsoever. The network connection will have some slight interruption, which in sometimes it might not be significant. Okay, so this is the live migration feature offers in Fusion Compute, which is similar like VMware or even Hyper-V. So you will see now when I go back to the resource pool under management cluster, CNA1 now running VRM and also Windows 7 machine. Okay, so when I turn on VM itself, both are running on the same node. CNA2 is now empty. Okay, so you can always perform this task again, okay, to migrate from host. Okay, I will change host again from maybe now running on 1, then to CNA2 again, confirm, and submit the task. Okay, so when I go to the task center, so your virtual machine can move around between CNA hosts. So when I click on reconnect again, so the virtual machine is basically still up, okay, without any interruption actually. So when you go back to resource pool, your virtual machine will be now running on CNA2, as you can see. Okay. Now, in order to facilitate this feature, your CNA hosts need to be in the same cluster. Okay. If your virtual machine is running in another cluster, they can only move between the hosts in the other cluster. So in Huawei, we still not able to move virtual machine from one cluster to another. Okay? So remember, if you are performing live migration, it will be in between the hosts that is running in this particular same cluster. Okay, so these are the virtual machine live migration. Things like this. Okay, so those are for template deployment. Okay, there is another way for you to actually clone your virtual machine. If you're not using a template or you do not have a template, for example, there are some ad hoc requests saying that I would like to have an identical copies of this virtual machine to do some testing. And this VM cannot be shut down for certain services reason whatsoever. You can always perform a live cloning on the virtual machine. So when I right click on the VM, okay, other than template, you can actually select clone virtual machine. Okay, so I will clone the virtual machine. Which VM do you want to clone? This is the new one. I will put in 02. Okay, 02. Same configuration, same specification. Okay, just it has a default option. Next. Okay, and I can also put it to power on automatically after creation and confirm. Okay, so when you move to the task center, so in order to clone another virtual machine, okay, from a running VM. So to provide this feature, VM Windows 7.01 need to create a point-in-time snapshot to log your data at one time. Okay. So after the snapshot creation has been done, your task on the VM can still continue, and then they'll utilize the snapshot to create your clone machine. Okay. So when the snapshot is created successfully in the Windows 7.01, now they utilize the snapshot to create the virtual machine called Win702. Okay. So you will see that, okay, this is Windows 7.01 console. Now the virtual machine is still online without any problem. You can still utilize it like normal. Things like this. Okay, I can go to maybe computer, all these things. Now this is the benefit for virtual machine. A lot of live operation can be done to it, okay, without shutting down the virtual machine. All this possible with virtualization platform and also the VM2 software. If you do not have the VM2, you cannot create a snapshot. Okay? You cannot clone the VM online, all these things. Okay? So let me check the cloning. So cloning initially is quite similar to your virtual machine template deployment. I'm just making a one-to-one copies of your VM. Again, so that this Win702 later will be having the same sets of data, application, etc. Okay, so you will see that the cloning is almost done. Okay. Then they will automatically delete the snapshot running on Windows 7.01. Okay, just to conclude the task here. Let me just refresh again. Okay, so the cloning is already done. They are deleting the snapshot for Windows 7.01. So let's see, okay, in the resource pool. Okay, so there is a new virtual machine running here called Win702. Okay, Win702. Okay, so they are running on the same host. Okay, and they are using the same port group and the same DBS. So now I will try to utilize the VM to communicate with each other. Okay, so I will set an IP. Okay, so for Win701, I will set an IP for 192.168.1.1/24, and Win7-02 192.168.1.2/24, and try to ping each other, see whether you're able to do so or not. So you will see that the virtual machine is running on the same host. So the communication will be happening inside the CNA host without the use of the physical network equipment. Let me just open up the network and sharing center. Okay, so I will click on the local area connection. So I'm changing for Windows 7.01, okay, to this IP address. Okay, so you just need to select IP default, then assign a fixed IP to it for you to test the ping.1/24 by default. Yeah, I will not put any gateway because this is the same segment communication. Okay, and okay. Okay, and close. Now you need to disable the firewall. so that your ping test can go through. Okay, so I will go to control panel, okay, show all icons, then I will click on the Windows firewall. Okay, so you should disable the Windows firewall to test the network connection. Okay, so I will disable this firewall. Okay, done. So I will minimize the control panel here. Okay, done for Windows 7.01. Then I will open up Windows 7.02. Okay, click on the login using DNC. Okay, so you see that in Windows 7.02, they have the same data set. Okay, clone from 01 VM. So now I will do the network connection configuration and then try to ping each other. Okay, so let me just open up the network and sharing center. Then the local area connection. Okay, change the property. IPv4. Okay, then IP address. .2 for 02 machine /24. Okay. Close. Then I will go back to the control panel main menu again. Select to show all icon. Okay. Then look for Windows firewall, similar. Okay, so I will turn off the Windows firewall. Okay, disable the firewall so that the others I can ping to this machine also. Okay, done. Minimize the firewall options. Then I will open up a command prompt. Okay, I will try to ping to the other end. So we'll see straight away I can ping to 192.168.1.1. So from here in Windows 7.01, I will try to ping the virtual machine. To 192.168.1.2 from 1 to machine 2. Okay, machine 1 to machine 2. So we'll see that here we are basically providing internal communication within the same CNA using the distributed virtual switch because they share the same port group, same distributed virtual switch, and they are also coming from the same untapped VLAN. Okay, so this is to facilitate the communication. Okay, from 1 to 2 you can ping, from 2 to 1 that you can ping. Okay, so this connection will still be running. Let me just check. So if you go back to the VRM, let's try another thing also here. Okay, let me go back to the VRM. Now I would like to migrate, okay, machine 1 to machine CNA 1. Okay, so when I migrate the Windows 7.01 virtual machine, change host, okay, from CNA2 to CNA1, confirm. Okay, confirm again. So the machine will be moving. So let's see whether the connection will work or not. So you will see here, from machine 2, ping to machine 1, you will just have one drop packet, okay, and the ping will actually continue to go through because the virtual machine is moving from CNA2 to CNA1. So when I reconnect to the virtual machine 01, the ping is still ongoing. Okay, so this actually shows you the network connection is still running in between the hosts, even though you actually migrate your machine. And when you go back to the VRM, basically the VM is running on CNA1, okay, VM2 is running on CNA2, and they are communicating with each other, okay, using the same distributed virtual switch called management DVS. So you will see that from Windows 7.01, okay, under configuration, network interface, they are using management DVS and also manage port group. Okay. That's why when you set the IP address in the same range, you can able to communicate. So after you set a proper valid IP address, VRM can also detect it from the VM2. So you are basically pinging from 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. So this is how the virtual machine network connection actually works. Okay. So we are doing single segment only because we do not have another production with gateway to test. So if you want to communicate from one network to another, it will require an external gateway equipment. Okay, that's not available in the Fusion Compute Solution VRM. Okay, so we cover the bare metal virtual machine installation. We also cover the template deployment, okay, and some basic configuration, plus the cloning VM function, okay, adding the disk capacity expansion, extra network card, all this has been done already. Okay, so you now roughly have an idea how your virtual machine can perform and what are the tasks that you can do to it. So I even demo to you how the network connection works in between the VM. So when you move your virtual machine around, your connection will still able to run as normal. Okay. So that's about it for today's demo. So tomorrow we still have some topics and also some extra demo to go on. So I'll leave it for tomorrow for the cluster functionality. It's almost time already. So today will be until this part. Okay. So if you have any question, you can always ask here still in the Q&A. Okay. Or you can post question in the WhatsApp group again. Okay. So remember to help me create the account beforehand. Okay, so remember that. Okay, so this is a message. So remember, help me to create the account first to prepare for tomorrow. Okay, or you can ask question now also if you want to. And post your question in the WhatsApp group also available. So if you have no other question, I will see you tomorrow, same time.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Mr. Daniel, how can
Yes.
I get this Fusion Compute software?
Fusion Compute software. Okay, I show you guys for the first 2 days already. Just a moment. Okay. Let me just look for the short link. Okay, do you see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, there's a tiny URL here that will connect you to the public Google Sheet. So your software will have a link there to download. So you go to this link first, tiny.cc.
Okay.
Okay, can you see the sheet?
Yeah.
Just a moment. This is a Google Sheet. You're able to see it? Excuse me, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, okay. Now, did you access to the Google Sheet? No issue, right?
Yes.
So on the Google Sheet, you will find that the Fusion Compute ISO download. This is the link to get the software. Okay. So when you click on this link from Huawei, okay, you look for the Fusion Compute ISO download. This is the link. So when you click on the link, they'll bring you to the software download website from Huawei. Okay, under software download. So you can look for 6.5.1. So when you click on the Fusion Compute 6.5.1, okay, then you will see a list of software available. Okay. So you need to download the CNA ISO to install to a server. Then utilize the installer tool to push the VRM VM into the CNA host. Okay. So the step is actually shown in the simulation demo. So this is a place to download the software. When you go back to the Google Sheet, the simulation, okay, Fusion Complete Installation Simulator will show you the step to deploy the software here under software installation. So you can follow this step to deploy your own environment if you have a server. Okay, clear? You can access all the link here from the Google Sheet. Okay, it's already 11. So if you have no more question, then the class is already